Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clockedin with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Clockedin with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. I'm super excited about this. We have Jeff Hoffman. He's created billions of dollars with his companies, and it's just an incredible story, and I can't wait to share it with you guys on the Clockedin podcast today. Jeff, how are you doing today?
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's incredible that this finally come to be. So where does your story start? Where did this all begin? Because I know you faced a lot of adversity, you've overcome. Where did it begin?
So for me, it started by growing up in an environment where when around a lot of people that had no goals. And that bothered me from the time that I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've told this story before that I grew up in the Arizona desert, kind of in the middle of nowhere, with a single mom who had 3 jobs and 4 kids. We were poor. We didn't care because my mom didn't focus on that. But what I did care about was a lot of people that was around were okay with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm good. I was like, what's your big dream? No, I'm good. Yeah. And that was bothering me, that people didn't want more out of life. And a moment that hit me as a kid was my neighbor. I was 10. Yeah. And my neighbor got a poster in his room, and I went over to his house, and all my friends were there, and they were all excited about a poster. And I was like, what's the big deal? The poster was a photo of a Ferrari. It was a poster of a Ferrari. Yeah. And it's supposed to be a Ferrari with a hot chick in a bikini sitting on it, but we were 10. We actually thought it was gross that this girl's bare butt was touching that beautiful car. We were like 10-year-olds, right? Like, ooh, get her off the car. Yeah. But I was trying to understand, why is everybody what's the buzz about this picture? So I went home and asked my mom. Yeah. And I was like, why is everybody so excited about this poster? My mom said, what is it? I said, it's a Ferrari. My mom said, oh, that explains it. She said, because it's an unattainable dream. I said, oh, Mom, I thought Ferrari was real. So that's not a real car? And Mom says, it is a real car. And I said, then why is it unattainable? And she said, because neither you nor anybody you know, or probably anybody you ever meet, will ever have a car like that. And I was like, whoa, wait, why? And I remember thinking, asking her, why is that? And then she said, son, that's 0.01% of the population or whatever. It's a $750,000 car at the time, whatever. Yeah. And I said, okay, Mom, but someone drives that car. Those are real. Yes. She said, yes, just not you. And not anyone you know. And I said, okay, wait, Mom, but someone drives. She's like, son, drop it, right? And I was like, I go to school the next day. Now I'm really curious. And I'm asking my friends. I'm telling them. So one day when I grow up, I'm going to buy a Ferrari. And everybody laughs. I was like, why is that funny? And they're like, dude, none of us are ever going to drive a Ferrari. Yes. And they said, have you ever even, you know what I thought when they said that? I was like, not with that attitude. You're not. You already ruled yourself out. Absolutely. And they said, have you ever even seen one? I said, I didn't even know they were real a day ago, right? Yeah. So obviously I've never seen one. And they're like, never going to happen. Yeah. So that's what started me thinking as a kid. Why don't people have bigger dreams? Why do they just accept? Why do they cancel themselves on day one? Because everyone around them says it's unachievable. So from childhood, I was like, I want to pursue big goals. I don't even care about cars or Ferraris. That was the point. What I cared about was not being told no. I don't even want the freaking car. I just want to be able to buy it so that people can't tell me I can't. But that's the mindset I had when I was a kid, that you should be able to determine, no one should put a ceiling over you. You should be able to determine what you're capable of doing. So I always set crazy big goals that everybody called my stupid dreams all the time. But I was like, I'm at least giving myself a chance. I might not ever drive that car, but I'm going to try for it. The rest of you have already given up before you start.
And that's the best part about this, is because so many times we don't even give ourselves a chance. Like, we're not even trying. And I love the fact that you're like, I'm going to do this. And I don't care, because children, a majority of children nowadays are just told no so many times to go. And it's just like, what can they do? what can you accomplish? You can only accomplish what your parents believe is possible. I don't think that's right.
You're right, because there's so much focus on the no.
Yes.
No, 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 no. Instead of so much no, how about some yes? Point me to something. You said right. Point me to something I can do. And that's kind of not the world around us most of the time. And so I knew that even when I was young, I had this belief that there was something way worse than failing. Yeah. Like I went and bought that poster myself. I had the card, I did the research, and I'm finding out what it costs. And I'm like, okay, there's something that's written on my wall in my office. I write all these things that kind of move me. One of the things I wrote down, because I've been saying it my whole life, is improbable, yes, impossible, no. And that's one of my mottos. It is highly improbable that I'm ever going to drive $1 million car, but it's not impossible. Yeah. And so the difference between improbable and possible is that improbable says your odds of failing are high. I get that. But the thing that's worse than failing is trying to live with never trying. Yes. So when I started the film company, right, when I decided to make a movie, I knew that the odds were extremely low. That you're a random person starting a movie company, your movie's never going to be in the theater near me on Friday night at the mall. I get that. But the thing that's worse than trying and failing is for the rest of your life, every time you go to a movie, you're going to wonder if it could have been you. So when you try and you fail, you're over it. It's out of your city. You say, well, it was not meant to be. Yeah. If you never try, you'll spend your whole life saying, I wonder if I could have ever driven that car. I wonder if I could have ever made a movie. Just take the shot. Yeah. Either way, you're over it instead of thinking about it the rest of your life. That was kind of my mindset.
That's so big because there's so many of us that are like, I need to get this job and get this promotion, blah, 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 blah. And it's nonsense. It's all nonsense. And I tell my group with that, with Edwards Consulting, because we talk about mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And I'm like, guys, there is so much more outside of life that is not the work, that is these other ideas that, like, you have to realize anything is possible.
Anything is. And I love that you cover those 5 areas because blending them together is the ultimate success, right? Success isn't just, I tell people this all the time, I have billionaire friends that are miserable. And I have friends with no money that are the happiest people I know. I have really famous friends who are miserable, and I have people that are absolutely not famous that are happy. So clearly, just because you made money, all that did was fill one of those gaps in your life.
Absolutely.
But true success or true happiness is trying to, what you said, cover all those bases. So you're right, it's much bigger than just your job. Your job and your career take a large percentage of your time, but part of that is because you let them.
Yes.
Right? If you try to find a way to weave those things together. My example of that was all I ever really wanted to do was see the world and get out of my little desert town and meet people that didn't look like me. So guess what? I started travel companies because I wanted to travel. So instead of saying my job's in this silo or this bucket over here, and my passions are over here, and my philanthropic goals are someday, try to weave all that stuff together. And it's doable instead of believing that it's not.
And it makes so much more sense because it's how do we make this work together? Like it was funny because you have the idea of the golden triangle, and I was doing research and it said, reach out to people, the 10 people, and ask them what they think you're best at.
Yep.
And I actually did that last night.
Oh, you did?
I did that last night.
How did you find out?
And it was interesting because I started doing, some people were like communicator. Some people were relationship management. Some people said my brain power, my persistence. Some people said follow-up. Some people said never give up.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so they said all of these things, and I started to sit there, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Is that because they watch these podcast clips, and that's what they think top of mind? I don't know.
That's interesting.
Because I was going through this, because I'm like, wow, like this is like my friends, I asked my parents, I asked people that I work with, I asked other colleagues, I asked people who, and it was interesting, because people who did see me in social media, they were like, they said one thing. People who did, they said another thing. So then people who were like, it was just very interesting what was top of mind to certain individuals.
That's a great process, but it's a triangulation, right? You keep narrowing down till you find the one or two, the smaller number of things that you're really, really good at. To focus on.
Well,
so it takes a while to do that. It takes time.
I never even thought about this because the list was so long, and when I started grabbing everybody, like one person sent me 12 things. And I'm like, this is too much. What am I best at? Like, tell me the best one.
Yeah, the exercise is supposed to be the one most important, right? The one most powerful thing about it. They're only supposed to give you one answer.
Absolutely. But I mean, it was such an interesting component because it allowed me to see from another perspective what people thought about.
That's why I ask people to go ask 10 people or more to tell you what they see. Yeah. Because we don't do that usually. We wonder what they see. We even stress about what other people think about us, but we don't usually say, can you just tell me this? Straight up ask, because that feedback. But in terms of finding what your superpower is, it grows as you grow. Yeah. And it changes as well. I actually started out in the tech space as a tech person because I thought I was pretty good at it. Then I hired some rock stars who asked me, literally, we were all writing code. That's my degree. And my own team said, dude, you need to stop helping us. And I was like, this is what we do. We're a software company. And they're like, yeah, but we're all good at it and you suck. That was a hard day in my life. Yeah. I was like, wait, I suck at the thing I do for a living? And they're like, compared to us, yes. And I said, okay, I did hire you because you're rock stars. And like, stop helping us. Yeah. And I thought my life was going to be in the tech side until I found rock star tech people. Yeah. And I said, what is it you guys want me to do? Right? And they said, the product's almost done. This is the kiosks that we put in the check-in kiosks in the airports. And they're like, the product's almost done and no one here knows marketing. Figure that out. So it turned out that my strength was in organizing and presenting ideas. You could call that marketing. Yeah. And taking complex concepts and presenting them in a really simple way that people can understand. Yeah. But then that evolved. Later, the reason I got into kind of the speaking side, because later I discovered that actually the people management part, right? I did the marketing, but I was really good at. So your skills change as you change and grow and your interests change. But at any point, focus on the thing you're really, really good at, because that's what's gonna take you where you want to go.
And that's so important, because I was actually talking with a group about this literally on Monday, how it's not about the job you have, but it's the skill that you have. And like each job you do, you get a different skill. Absolutely. And now you got a skill tool chest. So you can jump around, you can do different things, and that's how these things are able to happen. So for you, how did you get such a large scale vision of the world and like really see it as like, hey, I can help in different areas?
You know, a big part of it, sometimes people see stuff of my life and they say, man, you're so lucky. And I always tell people, I'm not lucky, I'm engaged. Yes. And what I mean by that is that nothing great ever happens to you because you're sitting at home on the couch, right? Yes. Great things, it was a lot of times, I'll give you a perfect example. People say to me, you tell me to pursue my passion, but I don't know what it is. How do I find it? And I have to tell them, stop looking for it because you're forcing it. That's like literally deciding one night, tonight I'll have a girlfriend. And you're going to the bar, you're going to probably come home with a girlfriend who's probably not going to be at all what you were looking for because you were so determined that tonight you're going to have a girlfriend. Yeah. You can't just find your passion. Yeah. So it finds you, but it doesn't find you sitting at home on the couch. So let me explain that. The more engaged you are in the world, the more places you go, the more things you do, the more people you meet, the more likely you are to stumble across ideas that you would have never seen before, that light you up, right? You just lit up and said, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to be part of that. Or people that are going to change your life because you're like, Jordan, what are you doing? I want to do that with you. So that's why I tell people, get engaged, get off the couch and go out in the world as much as you can. I've literally, sometime one day, just to give you an example of it, there was a company I would drive by every day, and it had the name of the company, I can't remember what it was now, but the name of the company always intrigued me. And I would drive by and say, wonder what they do. And I'd wonder that every day. And one day I was like, why don't I just keep driving by? So I made a U-turn, and I pulled into the parking lot, and I walked in, and the receptionist said, can I help you? I said, what do you guys do? And she said, you just walked in here and you don't even know what we do? I said, I'm just driving by and I'm curious. And she's like, she was looking at me like I was going to rob the place or something. But the owner happened to be there. Yeah. And the owner's like, why are you asking? And I said, I'm just curious. Yeah. I said, I'm curious about what you do for a living and I'd like to learn. And he said, well, I love to talk about what I do. Sit down. Well, it turned into a massive business relationship. I love it. Because I just randomly drove by. Allowing your curiosity some time of the day. Most of the day, you have to focus on what you're doing. Yes. But you should schedule time to wander. Mentally, if you're doing it online, physically. So go places you wouldn't go. Sometimes I go to a conference and I have no idea why would you. I went to the HR conference once. I don't work in HR. I wound up coming home with the woman that ran HR for my next 4 companies, a big rock star. go out in the world, explore things, meet people. I talk to strangers everywhere, and you never know who you're going to meet. Sometimes it doesn't go well. And then sometimes you meet life-changing people because you just struck up a conversation. So I think that's where, for me, my interest grew, because I was out asking people, so what's your story, Jordan? Tell me what you do. Where did you come from? And things that's how your passion finds you, because someone talks about something and you're like, I want to go with you. I want to do that.
Yeah.
So get engaged.
Yeah. And it can be in a multitude of different avenues, because we think, oh, I'm in real estate, it's got to be real estate, or I'm in financial advising, it's got to be financial advising. It's like, no, there's a million different things. And that's one of the main reasons I do the podcast, because it allows me to meet all kinds of,
right.
And I don't have to just be, oh, Jordan, the curious question guy. I'm just asking questions. It's the job of the role. So
but that's also one of the most important skills you can develop, is asking questions and asking the right questions, right? Because that's how you uncover those things and those people that you want in your life. Yes. You ask enough questions and you see you'll finally get to things that really light you up, really capture your attention. So being good, that was a skill I didn't have that I learned. Yeah. Learning how to ask good questions is so important. Yeah. I mean, obviously that is your skill, but most people aren't good at that, and they should work on it, because otherwise you might have been chatting with somebody and you missed the single most important thing about that person that you would have totally related to because you didn't ask that.
Absolutely. People don't realize, and they go, like Jeff just said, that's my skill. We're 130 episodes into this podcast. It hasn't always been the skill. It takes time. It's a learning experience. And that just lets you know that there's many reps that it takes. Now, Jeff, one of the most interesting things about you that I find is your global nature and your travel. How do you think about travel and philanthropy, and how do you couple these together?
So they did come, one did lead to the other, but the travel bug goes all the way back to the same story when I was a kid in that little desert town. And when I hated my life, which at some point, like middle school age, whatever, at some point every kid does. And I had, we didn't have money, so it's not like I had a lot of things, but I had a globe that my mom bought. And when I would have a bad night, I would escape my life by spinning the globe, picking a country, and then spend the rest of the night reading about that country. Really? So by the time I went to sleep, one time it was Morocco. I was far off dreaming of trekking on a camel in Marrakesh, and my whole world was gone, right? Yes. Because there's the whole rest of the world out there that your problems are actually like that. The whole world, the sun still rises and everybody's still riding their camel in Morocco, sitting in traffic in Mexico City, whatever. So when I would explore the world like that, it would help with my perspective, because I would think, okay, there's a whole world out there. So the stuff I'm dealing stressed about isn't that big of a deal. But I read, the life-changing moment was that I read a quote in a book in school by Mark Twain. Yeah. And the quote said, "Travel is the fatal enemy of prejudice." Yeah. And I spent the evening, asked my mom if we could sit down and talk, because I felt it in my heart. I didn't know why. But I said, that message is speaking to me. And what I realized from that is that for me to become the man I want to be someday, I would need to, well, here's what I realized. Let me rephrase it. Hate comes from ignorance, right? Ignorance comes from lack of understanding, and lack of understanding comes from never spending time with people who don't look like you. Yes. And so when I would see racism or hate in the world, even today, I heard somebody not long ago say something negative about Muslims. And I said, did you have Muslim friends that you're in an argument with? And he goes, I don't actually know any Muslims. And I said, and you just made a comment? That's so insane. But that's the real world. So what Mark Twain was telling me to do was, the way I could become a good person was if I went around the world and spent time with people that didn't look like me. So I made a goal that I told somebody, and the people I told, I just got laughed at, so I stopped telling people. My goal as a kid was I could become a good human being if by the end of my life I have visited 50 cultures in 50 countries. Yeah. And it was even a little crazier. Some people I told, before I die, I'm going to visit 50 countries so I can become a well-rounded person. Yeah. But my real goal, Jordan, was I was going to break bread. Yeah. I was going to have dinner in 50 families' homes. Have dinner with their family in their home so I could really get to know them in 50 cultures in 50 countries. That I didn't tell people because I knew they would have laughed at that. And that's what drove travel. I was like, when I told my friends that I'm going to see 50 countries someday, they're like, no, you're going to work in a cubicle as an engineer the rest of your life, right? And they're like, some people said, you're broke and your mom's broke or you're not going anywhere. Yeah. And so that's how I wound up getting in. That's what less surprising that I was part of Priceline.com, Flipboard.com. The travel companies I created was because why don't you create, my friends would say, there's no job that's going to pay you to fly around the world. And I was like, you're right, so I'll just make one.
Yeah.
Right? So my first startup ever was I created those kiosks that you use now when you go to an airport and you check in a kiosk. That was my first invention. Guess what my job was? My job was to fly to a different country every week to sell kiosks and install them. So I created my reality. I want to go see the world. No one is going to pay me to do that. No one's going to hire me to do that. I'll just figure out a way to do it. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Create the reality that you want. So I started a travel company. I was selling these kiosks all over the world, and my goal was 50 countries before I die, and I'm at 102 countries that I've been able to go have dinner with some family. That's the fun part, talking some family into letting you come to their house and spend the day with them, but it's so cool.
Well, I was going to say, because you got me sitting here and I'm pondering this, and whenever people talk about stuff, you always think about it in your perspective, and I was like, wow, 50 countries. I'm like, I've done 25 countries, because I think travel is super important. It expands the mind. You get thinking about different ways. But then when I started thinking about the dinners, you're like, okay, let's really think about this. I was in Israel on birthright. They forced us to have dinner on Shabbat. Of course, right? Okay. So that's a good one. U.S., obviously. And then when I was in Peru, I was on the Inca Trail. And
did you do the whole 4-day?
Yes.
Okay. I was just there, but I didn't.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I was watching the people while I was driving by them. I was like, I don't think I can do that.
It was a lot. But I mean, this was 2 years ago. Okay. It's our buddy, like one of my roommates, he was like, Jordan, we got to do the Inca Trail. And I'm on this like working out kick, because I literally did the Inca Trail in August. And then in November, I ran the New York City Marathon with me and my brother. We raised a bunch of money. Because I realized that if you stack these experiences, so it's not like me walking the Inca Trail by myself. It's me walking with my 4 friends. So now I grow a connection with them. And then I really got to know the tour guide, Penny. He was awesome. So we did a podcast in a tent.
So you are breaking bread with people in where they live.
But what I was going to say is out of 25 countries, I have maybe 5.
Okay.
Where we were breaking bread. So
it changes the experience because you're with a family in their home. You're not in a tourist version.
Yes.
There's no politicians. A lot of the countries I go to, I wind up having meetings with presidents and prime ministers and even kings and queens sometimes. Yeah. And while that's interesting, or if they take me to the tourist spots, what I want is to see how do people really live? What do they really like? What do they believe in? The lesson is repeated over and over again across 100 countries. Our nonprofit, Global Entrepreneurship Network that I'm chairman of, we do business in 200 countries. So I have relationships in 200 countries. We're all the same. Yeah. Everybody's just trying to do the best they can, raise their family, take care of their people, do the right thing. Governments, politics, sometimes that's what messes it all up. But the truth is, we're all the same. Yeah. Everybody's just trying to do their best and take care of their people. And that's why I wanted to go break bread in their home and hang with their family and play with their kids, because my fundamental theory was we're all the same. And I was able to find that out by not assuming it, by actually living it.
And the best part about that is that you can sit there, and if there is an actual issue going on in the world, you can be like, well, I've actually been to that country. I know that perspective, and I can see how that handles.
That actually does happen. I'll tell you a quick one, and then I'll get to where that led to philanthropy. Because I was going to Pakistan. Yeah. And because people have heard me on a stage, there was already a family that said, we'd like to invite you to spend the day.
Oh, you can't say. I love that.
And friends of mine who read the media version of Pakistan were like, we don't want you to go. It's super dangerous there. There's all terrorists, whatever. They were saying all this stuff. So it was funny because that night they're all texting me, well, how is it? Well, because they were worried about me going, well, how is it? And I said, I don't really know. Everybody's just sitting around the table nervously with one hand on their gun. And my friends are like, really? I said, no, I'm on the floor playing with their kids. We're all laughing. We're having a great time. We'll be friends for life. I was like, people get the media and the political version of places. If you think about that now, the average Russian citizen does not, in fact, support what their own president is doing. Absolutely. Right? They didn't want to go attack. They have friends and family in Ukraine. Yeah. So the view that we get of the world is not the real one. But you asked me about the philanthropy piece. Yeah. And it led to it because I'm very blessed, right? I was blessed enough to get to do that. And when I was having all these experiences, when when we started the music company.
Yes.
The company was successful. We did tours, but we later won a Grammy. And I got to stand on a Grammy red carpet and win a Grammy. And we won 2 Emmys in television. And so one day I was sitting and thinking, I have way more than my fair share of blessings. Now, granted, I worked really hard and put myself in a position to have those things, but still, I'm very lucky and very blessed. So I realized that I want, everybody to have a chance to live whatever their version of a blessing is, right? And so that's where the philanthropy, I finally actually quit. I made a commitment to giving back by saying, the way I got here was entrepreneurship. I started my own companies. I built my own jobs. I created my own reality. That's a skill set and a mindset. It just happens to be called entrepreneurship. So my commitment, my give back was, as thanks for everything I've received, I will spend the second half of my life teaching as many people as I can, helping them have a better life. And either by, in my youth charity, which is called World Youth Horizons, literally, we literally build homes, right? We feed people, we give them homes, we send them to school, we build schools. But as you scale, those are for children. But as you get to adults, we teach them how to help themselves. So we do that in 200 countries now, the Global Entrepreneurship Network. So the philanthropy was me saying, I've been very blessed. I need to get other people to where they're trying to go. And you can't help everybody that you want to help, but you can teach them how to help themselves. And that's where the entrepreneurship comes in. So that's what I spend my time doing now. Either we're working with children in our youth charity, or we're working with adults and teaching them how to help themselves by creating businesses so they can take care of the people they care about where they live.
Yeah, because it's just so amazing. Because and I know you have countless examples, but I've heard about the Jam Lady.
Oh, you have? Okay, that was one of my all-time favorites.
Because it's not just like Jeff has these stories, and we hear about these things, and it's like, well, what does that even mean? This example is a perfect example.
So at the time, that was Obama time. And Obama had I don't do politics, right? I'm focused on entrepreneurship, but Obama had an office of entrepreneurship. So the White House asked me to advise him on entrepreneurship. So one of the things that he asked me to do was to go to Egypt post-revolution. So now people in Egypt had not been free to do their own thing, right? Because they were living under the dictator. He was ran out, the revolution happened, and now if you're an Egyptian, you're actually allowed to start a business. And so now Egypt needs to be rebuilt. So Obama said to me, would you go over there and teach them entrepreneurship? So that's what I was doing. So you have all these Egyptians in the room that are ground zero. They're adults, but they're at ground zero. They've never been free before to do their thing. And they care about their country. They care about the people around them. So a bunch of women came to see me from basically the village. And people didn't live well. And they didn't have much. And they didn't even live paycheck to paycheck because they didn't have paycheck to paycheck, right? You eat when you can, and you make money when you can, and you do your best. And I asked what the goal was, and their goal was to create jobs and income, stability for these people. But what was funny is they'd come to my class every day, and I was willing to buy lunch knowing they couldn't. But they all had sandwiches. And one day the second day, I noticed that they all had the same looking sandwich. And I said, you all eat the same thing every day for lunch? And they said, well, kind of. And I said, what are you eating? And they said, well, it's a sandwich with fresh jam. And I said, is that an Egyptian thing? And they said, well, not really. It's a her thing. And I said, what's the story? And they said, this woman makes homemade jams. It's her hobby. And they're so good that we'd rather walk to her house, get a sandwich from her, and carry that with us all day than bring her own lunch or get her own lunch. Because her jam's that good. So I turned to her, asked her name, and I couldn't pronounce her name at all. It was a complicated Egyptian name. And I said, all right, so listen, Jam Lady, right? And they're all laughing. And I just called her Jam Lady. And I said, tell me the story. And she said, it's my passion, right? I actually grow the fruit and make jam in my house and give it out to my friends and everything. And I was like, if all these people are walking to your house to get your jam, this is a business. So I'll cut to the chase. What happened was, we taught her, the rest of the women helped, and we decided to launch the Jam Lady. And so we turned it into a business. We did a microloan. You know what she needed for all the equipment she needed to turn her, quote, to get a kitchen, which she didn't have to bring, was the equivalent of $200 US. So we did a microloan. I gave her the $200. She created a kitchen. And she started bringing those, she couldn't pay them at first. All these other women, we created a website called The Jam Lady. We did promotion around Cairo and said, order online and we'll deliver. Eventually that evolved to getting a motorbike so one of the women could drive around and deliver. It's a business now. The Jam Lady is a company in Cairo, Egypt, that you can order jam from. You can go to her facility. She now has 2 full production kitchens in actual industrial type buildings.
Oh, wow.
But she generated revenue selling the jam. So that's what we did with the master class. But the point of it is, by the next time I came back there, she had her first facility. She was working on financing for the second. There were willing people to back her because they could see how good her sales were. She was making money and she was hiring. All those women had jobs now, plus another probably 30 women. That's why I tell people I would like to rename entrepreneurship to self-determination. Entrepreneurship is the ability for you to design your own future. And that's why that's kind of what drove our philanthropy work, because that's how the model works. We teach a woman like that, she hires everybody else.
And if that story doesn't light you up, because the coolest thing about that is that there's probably people listening right now who are doing the same thing. They're like, oh, I'm delivering food, or I'm doing some activity, or I have these bracelets. And it doesn't have to be this big thing, but it's something you enjoy.
Yes.
So why not share that joy with the rest of the world?
You're passionate about it, which means you're probably good at it, and there is a market for it. And that way, what you and I said earlier in this discussion, that way you can turn your passions into your business instead of having a job that you don't really like and trying to do your passion on the side.
And it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of energy, but it takes that ability to try different things and not be brought down because I've heard you talk about it before, where it's like sometimes we're not in the right environment, and sometimes we got to get in this different environment. Like you talked about it, where it's like in the corporate America, you're like, I just didn't fit in, and then I go to entrepreneurship, and everyone's kind of like me. It's cool.
You have to find your tribe. And a lot of times that means changing 2 things: the environment you're physically in, and the people you surround yourself with.
Because it just doesn't.
You have to be brave enough to do that sometimes to just move on and just start fresh somewhere else and with different people.
So what would you recommend to somebody who's kind of teetering on that edge of entrepreneurship, not really sure? How can they go about
that's a great question. And the answer is mentorship. What you should do is find a mentor. And in your community, it does not necessarily mean physically in your community anymore. It's nice if it's there because you can have coffee or whatever. But in this day and age, you can do that. I do a lot of online mentoring all over the world. But let me just explain what I learned about mentorship. When I was first looking for mentors, I was under the belief that I'm doing something in the airline industry, so I need somebody that works at the airport or whatever. The definition of a mentor needs to be somebody you want to be like when you grow up. And I don't care how old you are. You're still always growing up. Somebody you want to be like. When you pick somebody and you look at their life the way you do in your consulting business, 360, all those areas, because you talk about everything from physical to financial to faith, etc. When you look at someone and you say, I want to be like her, I want to be like him one day, that's the person you should get mentorship, not somebody just because they've been in the industry that you've been in. But the answer to your question is find a mentor. Because one of the things the mentor will help you decide is if it's even for you. You said someone's teetering on the edge of entrepreneurship. That might be the life-changing best decision you ever made, or it might be something that you're not a good fit for. Find a mentor.
And it's so important to find a mentor because it's also interesting. There's a component that I learned about recently that's not every mentor might excel in all the areas. They might excel in just business. Like Jeff, fantastic business mentor, fantastic entrepreneurship mentor, and people excel in different areas. But like, I use this example because it makes sense to a lot of people. Like, I have my rabbi as my spiritual mentor. I don't go to my rabbi for business. And it's just a simple, easy one, but it makes sense because not everyone excels in every single area. And I can imagine where you're at, the higher and higher echelons and the higher levels, like it becomes like a nitty-gritty component of finding a mentor in a specialized area.
And that's why I said tribe. Because you need more than one person. You're exactly right. I used the word tribe earlier. You need to find your tribe. Because one person won't, like you said, one person won't be good, won't fulfill everything you need. But if you have a tribe, you know who to go to in your group for different things. But you got to go out and find that tribe and reach out. And you got to be honest about the people around you that are not contributing. that are negative energy, stop hanging out with them. That's a hard decision. Stop hanging out with them.
And
build a tribe of the right people.
How do you think about that when it's like, is this person good for me or is this person? Because I've seen, and I can imagine there's so many people coming into your lives, good, bad. You don't know. So how do you figure out that trust barrier?
Yeah, I think that you overlay on that. What are your goals?
Yeah.
Where am I trying to grow? What am I trying to do? At any moment in your life, I tend to do my life in 3 to 4, for all those years, with 3 to 4 year segments.
Really?
I never had a 20-year plan. You have long-term goals that went out there. The 50 countries was across my whole life. But 3 or 4 years you can focus on and set goals. You have no idea what's going to happen next, 9/11, COVID. So much changes you don't know. But during those time periods, you should set goals. I'm trying to grow in this way. Let's use an example that you have not been loyal to your faith and your spirituality is important to you. And you say, I need to focus on my faith. It could be physical. Say, I've never tended to my health. And for the next few years, I need to reset myself so that I live the rest of my life as a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. When you pick whatever those goals are, lay them out, and then it's easy for you to look at the people around you and say, do they contribute to this goal or do they detract from it? Like, if you're trying to live a healthy lifestyle and you have friends that want to go out and get wasted drunk every single night and are, whatever, you might say, you know what, guys, you're free to continue doing that, but I don't want that lifestyle anymore. You have to move on. Yeah. And it's hard to make those decisions, but make them based on your goals. Are people helping you get where you're trying to go? Are you contributing to each other? And when you're not, stop.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's finding people in different areas. So maybe some people might be doing that whole drinking and you might be about that or not about that. But then maybe you do like tennis with them. Yeah. Or you do another sport and you see them only in another context because we find ourselves, that's what I found at least, like you just have to separate it and figure it out and work in a manner that works for everything. So Jeff, how do you think about travel and working? Because I mean, obviously you mush them all together, which is incredible. And most people dream of, I want to travel, I want to see these things, I want to go to these places. But do you ever have the issue of like I'm gone, so how do I maintain business? How do I maintain the philanthropies? How do I maintain the media? How do I maintain it all?
It's hard. There's no question that it's hard. But you know what I always tell people when they frown, they cringe and say, oh, that sounds hard. Guess what? Winning is hard, right? Yeah. If you're a football player, making it through a high school and then making it to college and then playing in college and making the NFL, then playing in the NFL and getting in the playoffs and winning the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl. Guess what? That whole path is super hard. Winning is just hard. So you have to be willing to have the work ethic to put the work in. That is one thing I will say. I've never, from the time I was 10 years old, knocking on doors in the 112-degree Arizona sun, asking people if I could clean out their garage for a few extra bucks. Hard work has never been a problem for me. Yeah. Being willing to do the hard work that everybody, one of the things written on the wall I told you about was everybody wants to be successful just till they find out what it takes. Yeah. They want your success, but they're not about to go out there. It's 112 degrees, Jeff. We can clean a garage in the winter. That's not how it works. You do what you have to take. So that work ethic, but there is other part to your question, which is team, which is surrounding yourself with the best people you can find. I always tell people that you got to be surrounded by rock stars. Yeah. Surround yourself with, and I'm talking about as a company. Too. When I build a company, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company, my focus was to have less people and more rock stars. Really? I'd rather, if I only have X dollars to spend, instead of hiring 10 average people, I'd rather spend it all on 3 expensive rock stars. Yeah. So the reason we're able to get stuff done is because we have amazing teams. Yeah. At Global Entrepreneurship Network, right? Yeah. At that nonprofit, we have an incredible team. At Unreasonable, the other nonprofit, we have an incredible team. So you just have to spend time building, nurturing, and taking care of rock star people. And that's how you get a lot done.
I love that. And for you, you have one of the most, I use the word perspective, but it's more like holistic perspective because you've seen so many things, you've experienced so much. What is it that you think people need to know about the world that we're not knowing? Like right now, what do you think people are struggling with?
I think it's that part we were talking about before. It's that understanding at the core, we're actually all want the same thing. Yeah. And people don't do that. People start, we made a recent trip to both Israel and Palestine. Oh, lovely. And there's people on my social media that will say, why were you mentoring Arabs? Or there are people who say, why were you mentoring Israelis? Yeah. Just amazing to me. Yeah. And in fact, if you were to come with me on the trip and listen to the core human conversations of people trying to raise their families on both sides of the West Bank or whatever, everybody's the same. No one wants what's going on there. They want just to safely and peacefully raise their family and do the best they can. So I think that's the message. The most important message I like to leave is that we actually are all the same. And if you would just drop all the fronting, right, and all the flexing and actually listen to each other, you can find that out. But people don't. They let the social media, the media, the politics, all that influence them, and they make all these judgments before you've ever spoken a word.
Absolutely.
That's what the travel does.
Yeah, it opens the perspective, and I think it's so important to travel. Even if you find it difficult to, try to make it happen. Go on a trip, volunteer, do something.
And that was a goal of building a company like Priceline. We were trying to make travel more affordable to more people. Yes, we were trying to build a profitable business.
Of course.
But we literally did have conversations about how cool would it be if we could bring down the cost of travel so people that didn't used to be able to afford to could travel. That was a real goal.
Well, funny enough, I grew up literally with Priceline, and it's cool because
you were the target.
Once you start getting the trip lined up, they literally send you a whole schedule, and you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you were the target when we were launching. So.
And it's just incredible because you start talking about, you're like, dude, I had to call them. I didn't know the times. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know the time? I'm sitting there on the internet looking at Google Flights, looking at Priceline, looking at all the different sites. You're like, it's incredible what it's come to be. And like, as one traveler to another, I thank you for that.
Sure, you are most welcome. I appreciate that.
And yeah, I mean, Jeff, this has been amazing. Where can people find you?
I have a website, jeffhoffman.com. My email is on there, but it's just jeff@jeffhoffman.com. Our youth charity is called worldyouthhorizons.com. And our entrepreneurship nonprofit is called Global Entrepreneurship Network, but it's GEN global.org. So those are all the places. My Instagram is Speaker Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah, I'll put that all in the show notes.
All right.
Jeff, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordan. Awesome. Enjoyed it very, very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.